Welcome to the 700 Club. After a weekend of violence in Israel, Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire. That came after the deadliest fighting between the two sides since 2014.
Despite the ceasefire, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a statement saying the campaign is not over, and as Chris Mitchell reports, the battles could begin again.
For 2 days, Israelis scrambled to bomb shelters as Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad launched more than 700 rockets at southern Israel. One of the rockets hit here on this quiet street in Ashkelon, about 5 miles from the Gaza border. It killed 58-year-old Moshe Agadi, who didn't have time to reach his shelter. Agadi, along with several other casualties, marked the first time since 2014 that Israeli civilians have been killed from rocket attacks out of the Gaza Strip.
And if we take into consideration how many people there are inside the southern part of Israel, you're talking about more than 1 million Israelis under the threat of those rockets from the Gaza Strip.
Israel struck back, hitting some 350 terror targets, including a terrorist responsible for transferring Iranian funds to groups inside Gaza.
We see Iranian fingerprints that materializes in money, weapons, logistic support, military training, and of course political guidance.
U.S. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib blamed Israel for unjustly oppressing and targeting Palestinian children and families, while President Trump tweeted out U.S. backing for Israel, saying, "We support Israel 100% in its defense of its citizens." For now, it's quiet, but most believe it's just a matter of time before the situation explodes again. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Ashkelon, Israel.
Yet more evidence that the Palestinians have no intention of creating a stable state to live alongside of Israel. That's not their intention. It's not the intention of Hamas. It's not the intention of the Iranians. They want to wipe Israel off the map, and you see it again and again with these rocket attacks, these terror attacks, the terror tunnels, all of these things. All of it says we have no intention of ever establishing a stable democracy, a stable state alongside of Israel. And it's about time. Let's cut the money off so that we recognize it for what it is. These are terror states. They're sponsoring terrorism. That's what they want to do. In other news, the White House is sending a message to Iran with an aircraft carrier. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. The Abraham Lincoln Aircraft Carrier Group and a bomber task force have been sent to the Middle East. The move comes after, quote, clear indications Iran and its proxy forces were preparing to possibly attack U.S. forces in the region. National Security Advisor John Bolton said the U.S. wants Iran to know what he called unrelenting force will meet any attack on U.S. interests or its allies. Well, here at home, the issue of life took front and center stage this weekend in Times Square. In the first of its kind event, Focus on the Family turned out a massive show of support to protect the unborn with what it called Alive from New York. CBN's Jenna Browder brings us the story from Manhattan.
Alive from New York. A star-studded pro-life event in the heart of Times Square. There are live performances, speeches, all sorts of things happening here. But the main event is a live ultrasound.
There's those little lips.
The ultrasound was performed on Abby Johnson, a pro-life activist and the inspiration behind the movie Unplanned.
This is a baby! This right here is a baby!
Focus on the Family says 10,000 people registered for the event. And it wasn't just the pro-life crowd that showed up. A large and very vocal group of protesters set up across the street. Focus on the Family initially hoped to use the billboards in Times Square, but President Jim Daley says their plans fell through.
Initially, they all said yes in different ways. Then when we began to describe what we were going to do, they started not returning phone calls or saying that this would be too political and they're uncomfortable with it.
CBN News reached out to those companies. ABC, we do not accept live advertising on our Times Square video screen. And Clear Channel Outdoor, they never presented any artwork for review.
That's really not accurate. They knew exactly what we were going to do.
Still, Live from New York turned out to be the city's largest ever pro-life event. And that's encouraging news, especially in today's culture. In Times Square, Jenna Browder, CBN News.